The following BLTV program is brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Please enjoy.
Greetings of the day, my fellow listeners. This is Steve Eschbach. I am your host for Seize Your Business, which is affiliated with the Business Lounge and the Business Lounge Television Network. I'm delighted to bring you another edition of a highlight of a business that we have in our little family, if you will. I'm delighted to have Kevin Sender, who is the CEO and founder of Kake Multimedia, LLC. And that is not cake like you eat. It is Kake. But Kevin, I'm going to have you explain a little bit more about your business. And by the way, thanks so much for taking your time and joining me, and tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Sure, no problem, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here, even though here is still in my house. I founded Kake Multimedia in about 2013. And so, what Kake Multimedia is a digital media consulting firm. Underneath that name, Kake Multimedia, there are a bunch of different things that I do and that my company does. We do quite a bit of system development. We do quite a bit of content creation and content development. Mostly purposeful content creation and content development, while we do also have a record label associated with the company. So we'll call it 80% purpose to do things and 20% purpose for entertainment. I also have a brand underneath Kake Multimedia called Top Shelf Law, which is really focused towards providing marketing consulting and system development, kind of focused more specifically towards the legal community, where we do most of our work for law firms, other legal associations like bar associations and judicial associations, and then several not-for-profits as well.
Wow, you do quite a bit. You're not unlike many other business owners that I encounter from time to time, and that is someone who owns multiple businesses, if you will, but it may be you own multiple subsidiaries of one or something like that, or how does that work?
Right now, everything kind of exists as a brand underneath Kake Multimedia, with a long-term plan to, break those off and partition things apart as it becomes appropriate to do so.
Great. So ultimately, when you interact with your clients, what is your ultimate goal? When you meet with someone, what are you trying to help them do? Are you listening, learning, and just trying to find out what their pain points are? Or do you have a couple, three different type of main things that you focus on?
Well, we certainly start with pain points, and then pain points usually turn into, a couple of different pathways that we take, whether it's a complete deconstructive, reconstructive pathway that we go down, or just a reconfiguration of what a business or brand that I'm working with is doing. After I kind of go through a very listening oriented evaluation with a new potential customer or brand that I'm working with, after that, we kind of determine, what their next step is within the services and opportunities that I have to offer. Whether I move them over into our systems, where we're really kind of taking a look at, kind of a holistic combination of operational systems, sales systems. Sometimes we're looking at staffing. A lot of times we're looking at technical resources, not necessarily just within the realm of website development, but also within organizational management, so on and so forth. Then sometimes we're just taking a look at, for instance, marketing and sales strategy. Are you using effective language, or is the brand that you're presenting effective? We do quite a bit of work, more so consulting than actual tactical, but taking a look at usage of social media platforms and other online resources that are out there for the benefit of businesses and brands. Yeah, that's kind of that.
So if I was to, when I first talked to you about what your business does, and you said you're a digital media company, I would have guessed that you are trying to assist your clients to get found in cyberspace. But it sounds like you do a heck of a lot more. And your comment that you listen and find out what their pain points are, you steer them in the right direction to, I guess, essentially, no matter what, you're trying to elevate their sales, elevate their success. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, we really look at every opportunity with a new customer or client is kind of a full life cycle. Being found on the internet is very important. I spend quite a bit of time doing SEO consulting, social media consulting, pay-per-click. A lot of time, often training clients how to use pay-per-click if I'm not actually engineering their pay-per-click, system for them. But just as important as being found on the internet is making sure that when that potential lead or customer finds you, that the message they find and the pathway that they take to get to you is one that not only qualifies that customer appropriately for the sake of making sure they're making the right choice, but also making sure that they're the right client for you. And when they get to you, that they're going to convert based on having a functional system or a functional website to accommodate that conversion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we're going to stop here right now. We're going to come back to this, but let's kind of rewind the videotape. Kevin Sender, tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born and raised, and what kind of influence did your family have on where you are today?
Okay, well, that's an interesting one. I was born and raised in Wheaton, Illinois. My family, well, first of all, they're a bunch of musicians, so that kind of explains, a lot of what you'll see behind me. I grew up learning musical instruments from a very young age. I started with piano, and then third grade was choir in school, and fourth grade came orchestra, fifth grade came band, which followed me all the way through to high school, where I was pretty competitive in participating in different types of music. I'm a Cavalier Drum and Bugle Corps alumni, so that's another organization that I was able to get involved in really pretty young, actually, that kind of molded, I would say, much of what made me into a person who was able to have that entrepreneurial spirit. And, it takes a lot if you're going to start a business and, then start another business and then start another business and maybe a couple more after that. So, much of that perseverance and kind of drive that I have really came from participating in those sort of competitive environments very early on. After high school, I went on to college. I moved away to Florida for a little while. I went to Eckerd College. Actually gave up on arts and entertainment based on some bad advice, actually, from leaving a interesting high school experience. I was really kind of sort of discouraged from really chasing probably what I should have been doing, which was following my creative drive. I think what music educators told me was that I'd be poor, and I didn't like the sound of that. So I went to school for science, actually, studied oceanography for a little while, found that wasn't really a fantastic path for me. I came back and studied locally at College DuPage for a little while after that. Ended up kind of sticking around science for a little bit longer. I actually ended up getting my emergency medical technician license. worked in that field for a little bit. While I was doing that, didn't really find that to be getting the goose either. And I was at a restaurant one day and I ran back into a friend from high school. We started talking about music. I told him I was in school still at the time, and he mentioned that he had a potential opportunity for me to take on a side job, actually working for Sam Ash Music Corporation over in Lombard. Ended up taking an entry-level position there. Stayed at that entry-level position for a couple of months, and that kind of led me into my first corporate opportunity in life, where I spent about another 10 years with Sam Ash Music Corporation. I was with them from about 1999 to 2009 when I left, doing everything from I started as a cashier, actually. Was moved from that kind of entry level role into a lower management position with them pretty quickly. Just started kind of fighting up the corporate chain within that organization. I ended up working all three of the Chicagoland stores. Had a little bit to do with helping them grow into a couple other locations. Spent a little bit of time helping them figure out and grow their inventory process. So, through that corporate experience, I really got my butt kicked in regards to business operations. And I would say that's really where I took my sales training in life, which is something that I rely on, pretty much every single day now. Is my bread and butter is, business operations of my own companies. And then obviously, if you're going to be a owner, CEO, you got to be able to sell something. It's going to be a rough go. So, I spent that time in big box retail and really learned quite a bit from a few mentors within that company, which actually led me to, so, 2008 happened and begin the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. And I decided that was a good time for me to jump from the security of a corporate gig. And I hopped into my first startup company with some friends who had a really interesting idea in creative development and technology. And we started a company making creative resources for mainly banks right off the bat, actually. Our first big client with that company was a company called Broadridge Financial Institution. Actually, it was the company that Broadridge Financial Institution purchased, and we were making repeatable creative assets, mainly videos for companies like Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, Wells Fargo, RBC, so on and so forth. I worked with them growing that offering for a little while until we were using mainly Flash video at the time, and Flash video kind of had a lifespan to it, which put a lifespan on our product opportunity. So, as soon as I started to get an idea that that company wasn't going to be a thing for too much longer, about 2013, I established Kake Multimedia, and
You are today.
we're working towards my 10-year anniversary here in a couple of years. So,
I'll give yourself a gold watch, I guess, and that comes out of your funds, I would imagine, correct?
Sure.
Is there anyone else on the Kake Multimedia team other than you, Kevin?
Yeah. So, I have my partner that I've been working with. His name is James Burrell, and he's been with me actually, he came from the company prior to this. I've been working with him for close to 10 years, and he taught me quite a bit about what I know about technical development, for sure. He also, he's another musician. So, in addition to what he does full time, which is mostly program development. So, we share our passion in that. Kake Multimedia also has a art gallery associated with it, and James is an artist. So, that's another thing that we're working on establishing together. He's also into the gaming industry quite a bit and is a game developer to some extent. So
Wow.
we have some talks about maybe some potential effort that we're gonna turn our attention that way at some point. Then beyond that, I've had a couple of partners come in and spend some time. I refer to them loosely as partners. And I have a massive team of creative contractors and kind of a close network of creative contractors that I rely on, really all around the country. We do quite a bit of video work, quite a bit of graphic design, and it's quite a bit of writing for SEO and things like that that I could never sustain myself without having some pretty impressive, talented people kind of working along with me on those things.
Well, good for you, Kevin. So, if we had to summarize what your common findings would be with your clients, okay? So you and I are going to do business together down the road. We know that. And I've got multiple businesses too. So, what would you say is the most common thing that kind of bubbles up from the clients that you make? And I don't want to say what kind of mistakes do they make. I'm kind of saying, what is it that you find that their shortfalls are that you can improve on right off the bat? Is that something easy to quantify or talk about?
Um, not necessarily for me, only because of the way probably that I developed my clientele basis. Worked really hard over the course of the last 7 or 8 years to really diversify what types of clients that I bring on. As far as the business type work that we're doing, I have everything from an army of lawyers and legal types to brands that are in real estate. I have not-for-profits, like I mentioned. I have quite a few retailers. I have clients in the food sector. Um, what am I missing? There's so many different pathways at medical, um, education. So to say that there's a common need that I come across broadly across all of them. It's I suppose the one thing that tends to be consistent is that if you are successful in any one specific thing, most of the time, that leaves plenty of things that you haven't had time to really focus your efforts on. If you've been in medical school, for instance, for the last 10 years of your life, or however long it takes to become a doctor these days, chances are you haven't really had a whole lot of time to master marketing and master the operations of, for instance, opening your own practice. If you're a lawyer, same thing. It takes a lot of work to pass the bar. You're probably not up studying, the back end of search engine optimization. I know a few, but for the most part, except for that guy, um, that would be the commonality. But where I think Kake Multimedia comes in, because we have such a broad experience of clients that we talk to and work with, is that we really understand how to bridge those networking pieces together. And the other cool part about being so well diversified is, I tend to be a central location for, hey, I got a guy. We have we have contractor clients. So, when my one of my retailers needs a roof work done, hey, I've got a commercial roofer. So it just kind of pays out a great piece of advice if you are, starting up in any kind of field. Definitely make sure, when I was working in big box retail, the one thing that one of the many things that I took away from that was control your relationships. Don't be the person who's out handing out business cards, expecting people to come back to you. Write down names and phone numbers, follow up with those people, and keep a really good record of all of the people, and relationships that you come across and be in control of them, because there's nothing pays off more than being able to stitch those relationships together at the right time and place.
So I crack a smile because I should let you, the audience, know that Kevin and I are both members of the Business Lounge. So we quite often get together. But the reason why I crack a smile, he mentioned the phrase "I've got a guy," and I can tell you how many emails I've gotten from Kevin that says "I've got a guy," and heard business owners and those looking for opportunities in commercial real estate my way, which I appreciate very much so. But the fact of the matter is you practice what you preach. And when you say, I got a guy, you literally put that message in the email to make the introduction, which I think is kind of neat. And that makes it our relationship stand out because, you're not the expert on everything. So if you need to refer something to someone else, you more than likely are going to do that. And I've done the same for you. I've had a meeting at the lounge and had a client looking for some advice on marketing. You were there. You happened to be there at the right time. And you had an opportunity to see if you could help that client out. So, but I think your point about relationship building and the other thing about your story, Kevin, which I think is very, very critical, is that you listen to what the client is doing and what they excel at. And I think that's where you hone in on. You find out what they excel at, only to find out what they need help with. Is that kind of the way you do it?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's critically important because I don't profess to be an expert on everything, and you and I both know that SEO is not my specialty. I can value a business, I can market a business, I can connect you with the right players, but when it comes for me being found on the web, plus the fact that I'm going to have a few more businesses under my domain, so to speak. I just don't know how to do that. I need help from the experts like you. But I think that's what you do when you meet with your clients. You kind of listen to their story, find out what works well, what doesn't seem to be working as well, and provide some solutions to help them out. I think that's kind of what we're saying. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty accurate statement. And quite frequently, a customer will come to me asking about one thing, and then I'm able to open them up by understanding the questions associated with that. We recently got a call from a customer who wanted some help with some video services, and had a pretty sizable budget prepared to start creating marketing video content. And within a couple of moments of that, well, I'm not your camera guy, but I got a guy. The next logical question was, where are we going to send your customers when they're watching this video? Tell me a little bit about what that call to action in that video is purposed for, which led to a really long conversation and a closed business opportunity in a website redevelopment. So, and probably a long-term search engine optimization project, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, that clearly demonstrates that when you listen to your client and understand what the challenges are, you're better to redirect them accordingly. And sometimes it's not within your company. Sometimes it's with a known, trusted member of your network that can do a better job than you can. And I think you'll probably vouch for the fact that that comes back to benefit you in the long run. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time as you name it on live video production sets. I was the gaffer, the gopher, you name it, hold this cord guy. And there's some things that I'm pretty okay at. I can edit up a video pretty okay. Never really enjoyed being the guy behind the camera, the director. Digital photographer, not really my bag so much. So that falls in the category I've got an army of them. Let's talk about exactly what style of video you want to create and where you're looking to shoot it. Let me make a call.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we have a couple more minutes. I do want to weave in because I notice in the background there's more musical ensembles. You have keyboard, you have drums. What else am I missing back there? Tell me a little bit how your involvement in music either enhances what you do at your company, and I know part of your company is musical entertainment, but does some of that kind of relieve the stress? Does that create more creative juices flowing? What is the music part of Kevin? How does that contribute to Cake Multimedia?
Well, so we do have, as I mentioned, I have a record label that I have, a handful of artists that I work with that I've kind of picked because I really dig them or because they're close friends that, I have some form of legitimate record contract with them where I'm managing their releases for them. We have a digital distribution partnership with a company called Paradise Distribution, which is one of the largest digital content distributors in the world. They're based out of Germany. Then in addition to that, I still play as much as I can. So COVID-19 obviously had a little bit to say about getting together and playing with other musicians that I like to play with. But hopefully we're getting close to past the end of that. So the Kevin and Ryan band can hopefully get back together and play again soon. I do, I play bass, I play guitar, I play the percussion family, you name it. I tinker with it. A lot of drum set, which is exercise sometimes, and sometimes it's stress relief. I did actually have a quasi extra professional second life as a touring DJ and performing music producer for a while. Still produce other musicians on an occasional basis, and I actually teach a couple of different high school programs here and there when I can find the time to do that. So
that's utterly amazing, and my kudos to you for being able to be able to do all that, and be able to coordinate that with your profession. One final question I have before two open-ended questions for you. And do you ever run into the situation, and I've shared this with you because I have this problem. Do you sometimes try to be everything to everyone, where they characterize you as being nothing to nobody? Or how are you able to conquer that? Because you do so much. I mean, do you ever run into that situation, and how do you better define who it is you are and how you can help your customers?
fair question, and it's very much an internal struggle, right? So the first thing is understanding your network, because the one thing that I don't want to ever do is, first of all, overspeak my knowledge or my ability to do something, because as we talked about, being relationship business driven, that's a really good way to end a perfectly good customer relationship, is by stepping over the boundary that you shouldn't have, by claiming to be an expert at something that you're not. So that's you knowing when is the right time to say, hey, I'm not your guy for that, but I've got a guy, and being confident that the relationship that you have with the person that you're passing that person to is also a good, strong one, and that you can trust that person to help you, kind of maintain that trusting relationship that you've worked, to garnish to begin with. Aside from that, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a little bit of a struggle. I think most people want to be everything to everybody to some extent. So, there were professional lessons learned along the way. Oh, don't do that.
There's nothing better than getting your learning experiences from trying. Many are cautioned that if you don't take any action, you won't accomplish anything. But on the flip side, if you take an action and you learn from it, perhaps you're a better person for it. So I think that's a good story. Well, we don't have much more time, Kevin. So is there anything that our questions and answers did not cover that you wanted to leave our audience? Any message that we didn't cover?
No, I don't think so. You're a pretty good interviewer there, Steve.
Thanks so much. I appreciate
Did
it.
a fine job.
One thing I forgot to tell the audience is who I am. So not only am I your host for Seize Your Business video podcast, but I'm a member of the lounge, as Kevin is, and I own a business called Transworld Business Advisors. My ultimate responsibility is to assist business owners confidentially sell their business and match them with qualified buyers. We also do franchise development and franchise sales as well. But having said all that, we encourage you to check us out at the lounge at Business Lounge Television, and we hope to see you again for another episode shortly. Thanks so much. Take care.
The following BLTV program is brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Please enjoy.